few months ago. The connection was Rodney Stewart Wilcox, who knows her dad, is that right?
Yes.
And Rodney was the pastor here at 19th before we merged, and he is now back east. But she came and wanted to be baptized and wanted to go through our inquirers class, and so we did that over the summer. And Angela and Kent and Andrea came every week and joined us in that class, and we had a great time, and she shared some of her story there. But today she's going to share that story with the rest of the church family. And I ask that she would listen and give thanks to God for what he's done in her life. Would you share that, Aaron?
Hi, good morning.
Good morning.
I didn't attend church regularly when I was younger, when the honest shouting of the preacher was more than I cared to witness at that age. Much of my life I felt depressed and like I didn't fit in. I was exceptionally intelligent and attended a gifted school 4th through 6th grades. I attempted suicide for the first time at the age of 15. Not more than a year later, when I was 16, it was at my dad's birthday. I saw a classmate's brother John and his friend Mike. John asked me if I would park my car and take a ride with them to their party. I accepted, and they drove me to a dark country road and proceeded to rape me. I was a virgin. It terrified me and made me feel shameful all at once. They were about 20 years old. All I remember is emotional and physical pain. They told me if I told anyone about the incidents, they would never believe me. To my dismay, when I finally did tell my parents days later, they did not believe me and proceeded to put me in a mental institution. I began running away and spent a lot of that summer in a mental institution in Kansas City or in jail because I looked so young. My parents would put a missing persons report. They sent me away to live with my dad's mom and my great uncle, my dad's uncle. I didn't adjust in the new high school Rockbridge, 2 hours away in Columbia, Missouri. The kids were calling me 21 Jump Street. I began working and not going to class. I dropped out basically and got my GED at the University of Missouri, Columbia. I didn't study, so I did not score quite high enough for a scholarship, but passed my GED. I enrolled into community college my Uncle John put me in. It was 45 minutes north in Moberly. Not long after that, I was working part-time 30 hours and going to school 16 hours. It was overload and I dropped out again. Long after that, I found out I was pregnant. Then shortly after, my uncle pleaded with me to get an abortion. He was nabbed by the FBI. On the cover of the paper it read, "Feds down major dealer." I lived with my great-grandmother at that point, Maudie. She encouraged me to read the Bible. I did. I read from Jeremiah and Jacob, names that I liked in the chapters. I also answered an ad in the newspaper, the Columbia Tribune, for a couple trying to adopt a child. I figured this was the only way to get my baby a good home. I couldn't expect my great-grandmother to take care of me and the baby. The couple was trying to adopt a child. They lived in New Hampshire. They were interested in giving me room and board in exchange for my son after he was born. I went into labor reading Misery by Stephen King. I was no wonder. I named my son Jeremiah Jacob and put down the father as don't wish to disclose. I told my mom I wanted to keep my son, and there was no way I would get out of the if there was any way I could get out of the hospital with him, that I would never give him up. My birth mom Chung sent me a ticket to KC. She wanted me to go home to my dad. I did not know how to support myself or my son. I started dancing in drop clothes in Kansas City. My dad and stepmom offered to watch my son for me, so my boyfriend at the time, John, and I could have time together. I did need a babysitter while I was trying to get money for diapers, etc. I had warrants for outstanding traffic tickets. He had a way to get me arrested if it wasn't for trespassing. After no luck getting my son back, I went to a guy that worked at a hotel in St. Louis. When we left California, my plan was to make it to California to get money to get my son back by getting a lawyer. We took turns driving this person's car. I woke up with him asleep at the wheel when I woke up. The car rolled 6 times. I remember praying to God each time the car rolled, "Please watch after my only son. I am so sorry, God. Please give me another chance at life." I had glass on my lips when I woke up in the hospital on an x-ray slab. I remember grabbing a cigarette and leaving the hospital, not even a coat on. It was snowing. I hitchhiked the rest of the way to California in semi-trucks that I would get at truck stops. Truck drivers worked over CV to get me in their truck safe. Luckily, no one made any advances at me at this time. I hitchhiked from a small town called Rifle, Colorado. It was a miracle. This time I knew for a fact that there was a real God. I made it all the way to an industrial area outside Los Angeles. I would stay awake at night in coffee shops. The first place I went to was a place in Hollywood called Teen Canteen. I met a guy named Michael that was doing community service there. I later found out he had lost his wife and son in a car crash on New Year's or Christmas Eve. He was dealing with his loss. He one night threw a champagne glass at me while I was in the tub. I went into an adult club for the first time and never came back. Well, for the first time at that time. I never came back out. I left with the dancers and a DJ. Not only did I later meet a criminal attorney that defended Henry Hill, the movie that The Goodfellas was written about, but to my surprise, this smart attorney did cocaine and drank vodka straight. I did drugs too with this friend who was a judge. This was when I began questioning where I was and what I was doing. Needless to say, he gave me his convertible and dropped me off, and I dropped him off at court and had his Mustang all day. I answered on the LA Weekly for calendar modeling. It's coincidental that I met a guy named Michael, and he worked for an adult film company in the business. I won't talk about my next 6 years in the adult film industry. However, on March 29th, 1998, I tested positive for HIV. I was lonely. I felt like God had abandoned me. Someone I had known for 6 years had forced his test and infected me and 5 other women in the industry. I was so hurt. I felt like I was dying emotionally. My heart and chest never hurt so much before. Every time I would wake up, I'd cry myself back to sleep. How could this be? Could this be a mistake? I wanted to convince myself, but it wasn't. Soon after, I had newspapers and TV shows calling me, and tabloids even. I never wanted to be invisible so much. I went on TV and talked about how condoms can save lives. I spoke to the new generation and told them what I thought about HIV transmission. It was hard to conceal my own pain. I had a dance offer in Hawaii. I took it. I featured at a club for a week. To my surprise, the bookstore outside Aiea, Hawaii was full of fans waiting for a long time. I felt like it wasn't all for nothing. I had support. To my surprise, the MTV True Life episode had aired the night before. They were supporting me. I was almost grateful. I was like I started then, if only I felt that way. I became homeless in Hawaii after I took work for someone's internet company. I got on SSDI and SSI benefits. I took psych meds for the first time. After finding out I was positive when I got sober, I had real anxiety, almost like post-traumatic stress syndrome. I began healing after I put myself in rehab when I turned 30. A month later, my mom died. I heard voices for the first time. It terrified me. I was hospitalized in a mental institution by choice this time. I paid a lot of music to get rid of, drown out the voices. They think this was due to my ice use. After I got clean for a year and the second time was recommended for me to go there, I was clean from drugs for 2 or 3 years. I smoked medical cannabis or took Marinol. I had a ruptured appendix in 2004 and smoked medical marijuana. They tried to kick me out of federal low-income housing at military barracks in Hawaii. I got a hold of someone I had met earlier in Florida when I was diagnosed in '98 and flew me to Dallas. It was my only hope at that time. I went on chemo for the first time and was not on HIV drugs. It caused me to get a call from the doc's office telling me I had full-blown AIDS and try not to be alarmed. I was once again devastated. I soon after met my husband online on an HIV site. We would meet. He would keep me company when I felt I was going to die. I had hope again. When I flew to California to see my girlfriend, he flew me up north to San Francisco. It was a bumpy relationship at first, partially due to his mom, but we were together and married 5 years later. My dad became a pastor at a Baptist church. We got into a fight about 2 years ago, and I went back out into drugs. It was during this time that I went to Glide to get my ID replaced. And in turn, I started volunteering there in the basement of the church. It was soon after that I realized God's love for me. I wanted to go to a church where I could worship the Lord and share this experience with others. I haven't looked back to drugs. I still go to counseling by choice. I continue to pray and read the Bible, though